Hi friends, and welcome to From Amateur to Expert, where we talk about work, wealth, and how to become a top name in your industry. Today, a longer format video. Grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and we're going to cover the composite qualities of the kind of person who becomes wealthy. Over the past few videos, I've been announcing and speaking about this concept, and I've decided on a slight change in format. I was going to do it one video at a time, but it occurs to me that that serves me well, but perhaps less so for you. I think it would be more useful for you to have all of that information aggregated into one video, this one. So what we have in this video is the audio version of the new book, How to Grow Rich, 50 Ways to Debunk Money Myths and Master Wealth, covering this topic, this area, in quite some detail. A quick note on the text. You'll hear the phrase wrong, wronger, wrongest. This entire book follows a format of setting up the way people believe versus what actually works in the real world. And I set that up at the beginning of the book with a story in which one of our teachers got the class to say dead, deader, deadest. And I used the phrase wrong, wronger, wrongest. So for the language purist, my sincere apologies, but for the sincere wealth builder this year, I think you'll find this interesting. By combining data polled in Forbes, CNBC, and the Sydney Morning Herald, and mixing in a little of what I have seen over the years, we can identify many of the values and qualities commonly found in the rich. These give us a composite picture of the type of person who tends to grow enormous wealth. By learning their traits, we can improve our own efforts to accomplish the same. Mentally stable, tough, and self-assured. The rich are disproportionately mentally stable. Do not misunderstand. This is by no means the same thing as saying that they are always correct in their reasoning or assumptions. It is quite possible to be rich and get things wrong, or be rich and be completely mistaken. Here we are talking about something else. The rich are less prone to being neurotic. Instead, they are known for being calmly on their own side. They tend to be at peace with themselves, even as they battle the stormy seas of life, wealth, and business, and very little throws them off course or causes them severe self-doubt. These are men and women who deeply know that they are ultimately in charge and all will be fine. They rely on themselves and believe that they can do it. They put in long hours, show astonishing levels of commitment, and work a plan. But they are not frail, fearful, or easily blown about as they go. Steady and calm at the helm, they are poised tacticians who enjoy their own sense of mastery over life and fate. I want to encourage you to begin developing that inner sense of mastery. You may not have it right now. Few begin that way. But the more you take charge of your story, develop a plan, work that plan, stick to your goals and continually push forward, seeing progress as you go and assuring yourself that you are on track, the more you will experience that deep sense of reward that comes from self-determination. I want you to develop your own certainty. This is a necessary personal quality for wealth, perhaps the necessary one, and you must calmly and quietly work towards becoming this person. What does that mean in practical terms? It means working on confident body language. It means talking yourself down when your emotions run high. It means thinking rationally and optimistically, rather than emotionally and pessimistically. It means digging in and continuing to push towards your goals even when you don't feel like it. It means reframing self-flagellating beliefs and instead telling yourself a better story about yourself. Let's take a simple example. Most people fear public speaking. They will say things like, "Why do I have to stand up in front of 1,000 people? Why is this happening to me?" To reframe the situation, remove the victimhood and return the locus of control to yourself. Say, "I get to stand up in front of 1,000 people. This could be a defining moment in my career. I've got this." The opposite of our mentally tough individual is someone who is emotionally fragile, a panicked soul who falls apart when anything is done to them, someone who moves through life like a hunted victim, continually jumping in reaction to external events, rather than behaving like a master strategist, carrying out a plan and setting the right events in motion, regardless of what is going on around them. It is the difference between internal and external determination, setting your own course or being blown about by the wind. You see these qualities manifest most clearly when people interact with others. The calmly confident seem to have an inner rhythm that says, "I'm okay, you're okay. We both come from a place of strength and we respect each other. I've got some goals and I'm going to make them happen. Let's get things moving." The neurotic come across very differently. Their energy seems to announce, "You're the big person in charge, and I'm frightened of what you will do to me. I don't want to be here, and I hope I can get away unharmed." That sort of energy does not advance. It locks a person in at a certain low level. If this is something you struggle with, I would like to advise you to read an excellent book on adolescent frailty versus strength, called The Coddling of the American Mind, by Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Hyatt. The authors go into detail about how successful psychological counseling is all about training people to be mentally strong and able to cope with the world around them. By contrast, they point out a worrying trend in universities and popular culture in which kids are taught to catastrophize and to feel traumatized and victimized by anything that hurts their feelings or triggers them. The emphasis in this trend is feelings-based and subtly encourages high offense, brittle inability to adapt, fear of ideas, chronic safetyism, and a desire to be continually rescued from scariness. It is a trend towards becoming more juvenile rather than more independent. This is a perfect recipe for failure in life. You cannot condition yourself to be a perpetually broken, injured party with a heightened sense of suffering slights by others and also achieve growth. You also cannot surrender your internal locus of control to external parental figures and maintain sufficient drive and initiative to become successful. Hyatt and Lukianoff illustrate that the whole point of raising a child is not to raise a child, but rather to raise an adult with all the capacity for self-determination and internal resilience that the term entails. It is perfectly okay to sometimes feel that life is hard. But from the perspective of becoming a successful wealth builder, it is not okay to continually emotionalize every small bump in the road. You must begin to practice the skill of removing yourself from non-stop emotional fretting, and in its place, begin to use thoughtful confidence instead. Excellent stewards. Steward is an old-fashioned word, but it's a good one. It describes a person who takes a thing seriously, yet it also goes further than that. It implies someone who sees things through faithfully and completely with a certain excellence. It is perhaps best illustrated in absentia, when no one is looking. Here is the simplest test of stewardship. If you say you will, and I leave you to it and go away, when I come back, will it be done? That is stewardship. It is governing responsibility and drive in the absence of someone else's control. It is the capacity to marshal the best in yourself and take total charge of what must be done. Not surprisingly, execution is one of the main distinguishers of the self-made successful. Almost everyone has ideas. Few couple them with excellent stewardship. Most people have thoughts and fancies about how they might build themselves, grow their lives, make smart career moves, and get ahead. But not everyone employs long-term excellence and care in executing their vision. Wrong, wronger, wrongest. To understand the mindset of a steward, consider its opposite. What does it look like when a person is not a good steward and doesn't take their responsibilities seriously? Here are two real-life examples that I witnessed recently. 1. A young man who felt that he was stuck in his job expressed frustration to his family. They then offered to pay him to study further so that he could make more of himself. All he had to do was find something that he identified as useful, and they would sponsor it. A year later, he still had not returned with an answer. How seriously is he taking the stewardship of his own life and career? This young man did not want a solution. He wanted to feel like a victim, and he wanted pity. That is different. 2. Two friends simultaneously decided that they were overweight and wanted to do something about it. One started an exercise regime that very day. Starting now is the only way that big projects succeed. The other friend spent the next 2 years talking about what she planned to do, always asserting that she would start next week. She never did, and lost 2 full years of exercise to inaction. Immediacy and self-imposed urgency are signs of good stewardship. Talking about something unendingly is not. It is self-delusion. Self-assured drivers. We have covered mental toughness, but being stable on the inside is only the beginning. The wealthy do not merely use their stability to shield themselves from the buffeting of the outside world. That would be reactive. The wealthy tend to be extremely proactive. They forcibly plunge into the outside world and make things happen, knowing beyond doubt that nothing happens until they initiate it. As author Felix Dennis writes in his book about becoming one of Britain's wealthiest self-made entrepreneurs, quote, "Whatever qualities the rich have, they can be acquired by anyone with the tenacity to become rich. The key, I think, is confidence. Confidence and an unshakable belief it can be done, and that you are the one to do it." End quote. Notice the reference to an internal locus of control. He continues, quote, "Tunnel vision helps. Being a bit of a shit helps. A thick skin helps. Stamina is crucial, as is a capacity to work so hard that your best friends mock you, your lovers despair, and the rest of your acquaintances watch furtively from the sidelines, half in awe and half in contempt." End quote. Nonconformists who push hard. Hinted at by Dennis is another of the more interesting qualities of the rich. They tend not to particularly care what others think of them. They are not troubled by popular opinion or public consensus. They know what they think, and they are strong enough to run with that, in spite of disagreement. This has the interesting potential side effect of sometimes making them less agreeable. This does not necessarily mean that they are outright rude, although it certainly can manifest that way. But rudeness is actually not the point. It's a result. The point is that they do not especially worry about the perceptions of others, and emotional feedback from the tribe is largely irrelevant to them. They are on their own mission. The phrase, "so what?" about captures it. On the upside, this gives them the necessary leeway to push when others say that something cannot be done, or to flat out disagree with others without suffering emotional turmoil about the conflict. They are going somewhere and really aren't concerned by what you think about it. This combination of toughness and confidence helps them in myriad ways, all of which meet in a single word: push. Wealthy people exhibit a great deal of push. They push hard to move their projects across the line and to get what they want. This is an abstract idea, and so it is perhaps best expressed in an abstract way. Imagine your life's effort represented by 2 gym trips. Equate wealth developed with physical development achieved. The first option is for you to put on your headphones and get into a state of bliss while listening to whale songs. You move serenely about the gym, at an easy pace, one with the universe, barely breaking a sweat. Not much push. Or you might take an alternative approach. You set demanding goals, feel hungry for it, Plan what you will do, pump some pulsating music through your headphones, focus with a steely insistence on making progress, and get stuck in. You find yourself doing twice the amount of work because something inside you wants to go further, wants to drive, move, do. You are working for results, not going through the motions. You urge yourself onward, you sweat, and you force just that little extra effort on each set. Then you catch your breath and push a little more. You walk out of the gym spent, but satisfied. The key difference between these two examples is the intensity of the push. One will get greater results than the other, and you only have so much time at the gym, just as you only have so much time in life to drive results. Push makes all the difference. Don't get sidetracked by false dichotomies. A common misconception about the push dynamic pits it against intelligence and excellence as though it were an opposite. I have seen entire books dedicated to the notion that tenacity is not the key factor in success, but rather that excellence is the determinant. This somewhat misses the point. It is not a choice between one or the other. Indeed, excellence can be developed personally, or hired, or employed. And in many pursuits, excellence will be the key differentiator, no argument there. But it is the person with push who sets up the entire enterprise in which excellence even finds its relevance. Do not get sidetracked by a false choice. Push. It really is intensity that changes everything. If excellence is a necessary part of the mix, push will shove it to the forefront. As you think about yourself right now, how strong is your level of push? And how consistent? And how much do you currently care about the judgment, disagreement, or opposition of others as you push towards your goal? Are you able to quiet the emotional whisper of detraction in your mind and keep insisting on progress? Could you pump out one more set before the gym closes? It is that tendency to push that makes people rich. As we progress, I will share with you the principles that lend more leverage to your push. I would like you to work smart, as well as with great determination. For now, what might it look like if you focused on consciously building your capacity to push? Try this. Choose one example of an opportunity in your own life. What project could you drive? What new thing could you initiate? What idea for improving your efforts could benefit from just that little extra push? Here are two examples of the personal mantras I use when I need to compel myself to push harder in my own life. If I catch myself lagging during a workout, I tell myself, put in the work. During the 2020 lockdown, I exercised at home, which could be very tedious. I had to constantly lug equipment to and from the garden shed, adjust weights manually instead of using a convenient machine, and eke out that extra effort during a chilly winter. Whenever I caught myself about to cut a corner or skip a set, I would use that exhortation on myself. Put in the work. I would literally say those words to myself. Then, when it comes to larger-scale wealth-generating projects, my constant mantra is, don't leave the ball waiting in my court. I have used it twice recently. 1. I have a large book about to be published in the United States. The edited manuscript came back from the editor, and it was my task to check through the edits. When the email arrived, I began immediately and did nothing else for 4 straight days until I completed my side of the work. Then I sent it back to the publisher. This means they are not waiting on me, which brings forward the publication date, which translates to earnings and frees me up to begin my next project. Don't leave the ball waiting in your court. 2. I have a monetized YouTube channel. The videos that attract the most views, and consequently generate the most revenue, are live presentations in front of big audiences. In return for a voiceover for a production company, I have been offered a 2-camera shoot at my next live event. I am organizing my own event right now in order to get that new video up online as soon as possible. Don't keep the ball waiting. Hit it straight back and keep pushing. On to the next thing. What would this look like in your world? Is it a show you need to launch? A sale you need to make? Do you need to complete that coding, or finally go and inspect that business you intend to buy? What is your next step? Rich people push. They push hard and they don't stop. If all of this talk of assertiveness makes you nervous, I would like to remind you that pushing does not have to be ugly, brash, or ill-mannered. Merely determined. Let us take the scenario of a musical artist, the globally successful Ed Sheeran. Ed is not a salesperson. He is not the brazen, cigar-chomping, take-no-prisoners head of a multinational corporation. Yet he does have enough personal wealth to buy several multinational corporations, which he could then neatly plop down on a series of private islands. The man is not struggling, and it is all attributable to push. From the age of around 13, Ed knew that he wanted to be a singer, and he began to push. There is video footage available of him playing and singing his guitar on busy streets, in train stations, in bars. He never stopped. He knew what he wanted, and over the years he insisted his way into making it a reality. Ed Sheeran is something of a purist and an artist in his production. But that did not mean he sat at home being pure and artistic and waiting to be discovered. No, his push manifested as relentless public displays of his art to make his vision a reality. You may need to push in order to publish your romantic novels set in 18th century Scotland, or perhaps to create a chain of themed play parks for children. In a corporate scenario, pushing will look different again. It will generally look like a person who volunteers, leads, and drives projects. Someone who stands up and speaks, and who keeps things moving forward. But it is always the same basic force, the push to make it real. If you possess this push, you will learn, find out, go see, meet the right person, set up the meeting, organize a start, work out the next step, rally the troops, make the calls, go, go, go. Optimistic and opportunistic. You are unlikely to push hard if you don't basically believe that things can be changed. So it makes sense that wealthy people tend to have an optimistic outlook. This is perhaps best understood in contrast to its opposite. Picture the sad sack who constantly whines about why something can't be done, in contrast to the driver who gets up early, pushes, and ensures that it does. A practical example of this trait is the propensity to say yes to opportunities, and then find a way to make it happen. Could you write that book? Could you head up that project? Could you launch it? The person with the high probability of becoming rich says yes initially, then figures it out quickly. There is also an element of playfulness beneath this quality. If we contrast it against someone who has given up and is merely going with the flow of employment, our opportunistic individual is sprightly and good-humored. Even as they take it all seriously, they are nevertheless able to be playful about it. Where others may weigh up decisions for months, even years at a time, this person echoes Richard Branson's famous "screw it, let's do it" mindset. They are not recklessly rash. However, they are playfully adventurous and tend not to get stuck in endless analyses. These are drivers, after all, not perpetual thinkers, judges, and scrutinizers. Let us put a human face to this idea. Have you ever met a person, usually quite an intelligent individual, who excels at thinking up reasons why an idea would not work? Without getting too sidetracked by psychology, it turns out that this takes no great skill. Psychologists call it post hoc rationalization. We start with a gut reaction, yes or no. Then we think up hundreds of clever reasons why that reaction was right, after we have already made the decision emotionally. This is precisely what happens with intelligent but negative people. Their initial impetus, their knee-jerk reaction, is to say, no, it can't be done. After making that determination, they will then employ all of their mental faculties to produce creative verbal essays to explain it. Yet clever though their arguments may sound, this line of reasoning is not logical. It is initially emotional and fearful, and thereafter seeks justification. You could just as easily decide yes, and then find and manufacture reasons why it might succeed. It takes no courage to say no and then talk yourself down, but it takes immense drive, optimism, mental strength and initiative to say yes, then find ways to make it happen. The difference between the two is optimism, a playful sense of adventure, an initial wanting to try. Here is another way to picture that playful spirit. A somber overanalyzer might have a business go belly up, and they would then tend to define themselves ever after by that one great catastrophe. The playful driver, by contrast, might recount how one of their various projects hit the skids, usually with a sense of self-amused irony, while nevertheless living large off the successes of their other ventures. Let me tell you about the one that didn't work. Boy, that was a disaster. There is a sense of enjoying the game about these people, an air that seems to say, let's give it a shot, and even failure is not all that personal to them. Here again, we see the tendency not to fixate on what others think. Most people are terrified to give it a shot and then fail publicly. Rich people just don't care. It's just a game, after all, and so they grant themselves the space and the permission to play it. Effective persuaders. Can you convince other people, sell them an idea, or get them to work with you? If you decide to become your own boss, which is the route I recommend here, it will probably entail that you spend a lot of your time convincing others. This could mean anything: selling your idea, selling your product, marketing your business, or just being persuasive in meetings, presentations, pitches, or proposals. There is your push. For such people, Harvard Business Review points out that verbal acuity is your #1 skill to master, accounting for the difference between salespeople who exceed their quotas and those who fall short by up to 25%. That is a big difference in wealth potential, all accounted for by the ability to persuade. So let's talk about persuasion and persuasive people. Who must you personally persuade in your pursuit of wealth? Is it suppliers who must work with you? Talented people whose buy-in you need? Someone with power who can make something happen? Customers whose accounts you wish to land? Viewers who must subscribe? Harvard Business Review teaches us that average, high-performing salespeople communicate between the 11th and 13th grade level when scored by the Flesch-Kincaid test, as opposed to the 8th and 9th grade level for underperforming salespeople. Their language skills are good, and they are able to cleverly articulate concepts. Effective persuasion is largely about helping prospects to visualize their own desired end state via your proposal. For this reason, a company like Toyota will rarely focus merely on the features of their tough new SUV in their advertising. Instead, they will tend to focus on who you can become as a result of owning one. You're rugged, tough, and free. That's why you drive a Land Cruiser. Speakers and trainers use this technique all the time. They begin by painting a verbal picture of who you, the delegate or reader, can become as a result of the ideas you're about to hear. This garners greater buy-in to the message that follows. It's the difference between saying, "Today we're going to cover presentation skills, so let's get started," versus saying, "Imagine if the next time you address the board, instead of feeling fear, You felt a sense of mastery. Your proposal hits the bullseye and you change the minds of everyone in that room. Imagine simply talking your way into the approval you need because you're that good. I will show you how to do that. Driven by both carrot and stick. Two interesting observations about the rich are that first-generation millionaires overwhelmingly come from middle and lower income families, and that a large number of the people who achieve such wealth have experienced financial hardship in their youths. As such, these people are often not just working towards a goal, they are also working away from something that they don't want. There is a pain, a frustration, or an embarrassment in their lives caused by a lack of money, and they have determined never to suffer through that again. It's the young man rejected by a woman he finds attractive because she sees no prospects in him. It's the child who hates how mom and dad fight over money. It is something they never want to live through again. In my personal experience, I have seen that the stick tends to be more powerful than the carrot. Few people really work towards a luxury car. More often, they work away from the difficulty or embarrassment of having no car, no status, or no ability to be something meaningful. And often, it does not relate to material goods at all. People work away from feelings of powerlessness, embarrassment, and hardship, usually with an acute sense that their true worth is not being recognized where they are. Does any of that sound familiar? We are often encouraged to visualize what we want to have in life. There is nothing wrong with doing so. It is often more effective to rail against what we do not want in life. What are you working away from? By all means, use that energy to drive you. If it energizes the push, so be it. Low on excuses and hard on themselves. While people who lack assertiveness expend great energy explaining why things cannot be done, the self-made rich do the opposite. They are intolerant of excuses. They are hard on themselves, and far from striving to justify or complain, they tend not to indulge equivocation, least of all from within. They tend not to become morose or despondent about a lack of progress. Instead, their tendency is to become angry and to translate that anger into action. They set very high expectations for themselves and do not accept setbacks as permanent. They are also often in the habit of finding ways to reduce time frames, not extend them. Take a look at your current goals. What are your assumed time frames? How might you push to reduce them? Firm on clear accountability. Insisting on results from yourself is one thing. Getting results from a team can be harder. The opposite of accountability can often be dispersion via committee. This occurs when no one individual is in charge of a project. Everyone is part of the committee, and therefore nobody is truly accountable, even as the group finds ways to tell you why something can't be done. Always ensure that only a single individual is accountable for each outcome. If you are going to own a money-generating machine, this one idea can make all the difference. We have now considered what kind of person you need to be and what traits to develop to position yourself for wealth. You need mental toughness, which is the opposite of neuroticism. You must develop the ability to initiate and drive projects like an excellent steward. You need self-confidence and push, coupled with an unfailing belief that things can be achieved and improved. You must see it all as a game and employ a spirit that says, "Let's have a go." The ability to persuade will serve you well. You must work on becoming less worried about what others think of you, and more powerfully driven by your internal convictions, both to improve yourself and to work away from what you do not want out of life.